Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics. I'm Rada McBerto Willis, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. We have quite a bit of stuff to give you. So what I'm going to do is get busy right away. You know, I usually start with a preamble. The one thing I want to start as a preamble is to tell you this. We are losing it at the WHO. America is no longer the leader. It is now China offering the world $2 billion. $2 billion going to Africa, going to Asia, going to South America, going to Central America, and all these other places that normally we would like to curry favor with. Why? Because we want to have some sort of an influence internationally. Our people travel all over. We want goodwill. And instead now, in our insular being, in constantly reverting back to our carnal being, we are failing. We are failing. We are failing. So that is the message of the day. We have started to lose it. We have started to lose what we once stood for. So anyhow, I want to get busy right away. Well, what are we going to talk about today? Houston nurse helps out Philly COVID-19 patients, debates, and updates. So we have a lot to go over. Plus, we have the preamble to the show to give you a lot of material that I did over the weekend. Nurse and Houston activist Kandice Webber. Kandice Webber knew she had to go to Philly to fulfill her COVID duty. I wanted to also put in there COVID/moral duty. She speaks a lot. She speaks a lot about helping people, and that is what she's doing. Activist John Cotter Pilot and Stephanie Bailey continue their debate schedule. And we're going to have our updates. Candace Webber is not just a nurse helping out in Philly with COVID-19 patients. She is a Houston activist and Black Lives Matter organizer who is making a difference. She continues to disregard the naysayers because she knows ultimately she is working for the well-being of Black people. But with that, all people, she never holds back. And as such, is the person we should want on our side in the progressive battle. We want to be her ally. We want to be her friend. We want to be there for people who really has that moral within to say, we want to do what is right by people. We want everybody to have equal access to success. We want everybody to share what this country has never been, but what this country can be. Philly is lucky to have her with their COVID-19 pandemic exploding. They're lucky to have her, as you'd hear in her interview, she's seen a lot of deaths. She's seen a whole lot, but she persists. Having a newborn kid and not being able to see that kid often enough, you can get it. That's a sacrifice. But that is what activism is all about, sacrificing. And she is doing just that. And of course, we have two other great activists, Stephanie Bailey and John Cotter, continue their organization to arrange debates in Texas to inform citizens about their options. Real activists are those who don't necessarily have to do that activism. They have so many other things that they're willing to do, but they see from within that changes have to be made. And because they don't only care about themselves, because they're not insular like the president that we have, because that is why they do what they do. Anyhow, I want to start today with an interesting clip that I did over the weekend. So I don't even have to set it up because I think I set it up in the clip already. So take a look at this and then we'll take it on the other side. These guys are on national TV doing a orchestrated misleading of Americans on two fronts. On none of the news networks do they get challenged appropriately. But I want you to listen to this, and I'm going to be...
Opening up this economy is not a question of lives versus jobs. And what President Trump realized early on is that if you lock people down, you may save lives directly from the China virus.
Right.
But you indirectly, you're going to kill a lot more people. And why do I say that? We know statistically, based on our experience with the China trade shock in the 2000s, that unemployment creates more suicides, depression, and drug abuse. But we also know this in this crisis, as we've basically locked down our hospitals for everything but COVID, women haven't been getting mammograms or cervical examinations for cancer. We haven't been able to do other procedures for the heart or the kidneys, and that's going to kill people as well. So if you contrast like this complete lockdown where some of the people in the medical community want to just run and hide until the virus is extinguished, that's going to not only take a huge toll on the American economy, it's going to kill many more people than the China virus ever would.
At that point, Chuck Todd should not go and change the subject. Chuck Todd should come immediately and said, oh, if you believe that unemployment really causes these social problems, how comes it is that our government, because we know when unemployment occurs, that we don't tackle these problems? How do we not create policies to prevent suicides? How do we not create policies to go ahead and handle domestic violence? How do we not create policies to go ahead and make these people whole? You are saying you want to do something. Open up the economy, let everybody else go back to work, forget about the challenges of this virus, and somehow we are going to solve those particular problems, prevent those suicides and deaths because your economy is open again. But you will probably die from the coronavirus, many of you. And then he continued.
President, on one hand, he says he wants to leave these decisions up to governors. But it does seem as if he doesn't like the decision of a governor, particularly if they're in the Midwest, he expresses his view. How does that help the governor be able to make their own decisions?
I let the president speak for himself. What we're seeing here across this country in terms of different responses, that it is very useful to leverage local control. But on the other hand, I'm a Californian, and when the mayor of Los Angeles want to lock down that city through the end of July, I just got to have to scratch my head. It's the only way I see California ever becoming a red state, because my folks back in Orange County are not going to put up with that kind of nonsense.
My folks in Orange County is not going to put up to it. Well, guess what, buddy? Orange County was won by mostly Democrats, so I mean, at least they're getting a little bit of weird. But again, the constancy of the message that they're trying to put out there, that somehow lockdown is imprisonment, somehow lockdown is preventing people from getting ahead, lockdown is making people ill because they're not going to get their heart surgeries, they're not going to get their elective surgeries. The thing about it is, this is the opportune time for those who are pushing back to say, wait a minute, it didn't take the coronavirus to create a whole bunch of Americans without health care who couldn't get their hearts fixed, who couldn't get their kidneys fixed, who couldn't get cervical cancer surgeries or diagnosis on cervical cancer. Those problems were there before coronavirus. So having people run back to work is not going to make those conditions any better. In fact, it will make them worse. And why? Because as more people go back to work, the emergency rooms and all the resources of the hospitals must again be dedicated to coronavirus mitigation. And in that respect, then, all elective surgeries, all elective procedures have to be placed on hold again. The reality here, folks, is what these guys are attempting to do is short term. The short term is enough people go back to work. The damage to the economy does not look as bad. We get election with a president who is claiming to do much, and then all hell breaks loose in January. We cannot fall for the con. Too many people will have to die if we fall for the con. Now, what is interesting is I didn't see in that part, when Chuck interviewed Navarro, he did not do the pushback. Now, after that, he appeared on This Week. Interestingly, George Stephanopoulos did not do the pushback as he should either. But guess what? He interviewed Bernie Sanders right thereafter. And Bernie, if you took Bernie's speech and you took Navarro's speech or interview and you interspaced them, what you saw is Bernie boxing against Navarro. He listened to what Navarro had to say. He boxed against him. And this is what it looked like. I went ahead and I presented it in that boxing format. Check this out.
I'm happy to report that this president, Donald J. Trump, in 3.5 years, built the most beautiful economy in modern history. And the Chinese did take that down in about 30 days, but we are in the process right now of rebuilding that. And this president, Donald J. Trump, is the one who has the skills to do so.
Mr. Navarro talked about the great economy, the beautiful economy that existed before the pandemic. Well, half of the people in America were living paycheck to paycheck. I don't think it's a beautiful economy that when paychecks stop for 2 weeks, millions and millions of people don't have enough money to buy the food that they need to feed their families. We need an economy that works for all, not just Trump and his billionaire friends. We need an economy that says we shouldn't have 3 people on top owning more wealth than the bottom half of American society. We need an economy that says healthcare is a human right like every other country.
You say the Chinese took down the American economy, so you're saying they deliberately unleashed the COVID virus on the United States? Do you have any evidence for that?
Their China virus, the virus was spawned in Wuhan province. Patient zero was in November. The Chinese, behind the shield of the World Health Organization, for 2 months hid the virus from the world and then sent hundreds of thousands of Chinese on aircraft to Milan, New York, and around the world to seed that. They could have kept it in Wuhan. Instead, it became a pandemic. So that's why I say the Chinese did that to Americans, and they are responsible now.
You got a president who blames everybody in the world for the problems that we face except himself. This is a guy who used to talk about President Xi as being a great leader, a good friend of his, the leader of North Korea, who was probably the worst dictator in the world, was a wonderful human being. They wrote love letters to each other. Look, what they're trying to do now is, instead of address the pandemic that we have, the scandal of the moment is that we don't have national policy. We should have national policy based on science.
We saw some tough numbers at the end of the week on jobs, on manufacturing, on retail sales. The House passed that $3 trillion, the next stimulus package, on Friday. Is that a basis for negotiation? Is the president prepared to sign another relief package?
So Nancy Pelosi basically lost me with that package when she has $1,200 checks for illegal immigrants, and it just goes downhill from there. What we have to do, George, is basically go with the fiscal and monetary stimulus that we've been going through. We've got a lot coursing through the system now. We may need more. And
Chairman Powell says we do need more.
Well, what I'm focused on, George, is going to be the structural adjustments we're going to have to make.
And it really amazes me. Mr. Navarro talks about how the Republican Party is worried about the working class of this country. Well, you know what, Mr. Navarro? In the last 2 months, 35 million people have lost their jobs. There are millions of people today who are hungry in America. They don't have any food in their cupboards. There are people today who cannot afford to go to a doctor even when they have coronavirus symptoms. There are elderly people who are sitting home alone, who are scared to death about the future. If you're concerned about the working class of this country, understand the extraordinary suffering, unprecedented, that is now taking place. Demand that Congress act.
I wanted to do it that way. In other words, I wanted to put them next to next. These were 2 separate interviews, but it was wonderful the way each item that was touched by Navarro that we saw Bernie Sanders answer. Because what happens on network TV, they don't give a pushback. They don't call them out. Well, what Bernie did is he was ready for the call out on each individual item, because you see, as I wrote in a blog for that particular thing, there are 2 narratives that the Trump administration is going for, and we have to be cognizant of these 2 narratives, because these 2 narratives will work for the Trump sycophants, and not only for the Trump sycophants, but also for those people who have a tendency to believe somebody really can't be that bad. Somebody can't be really that evil. Maybe there's something that we are not understanding, and if we give a plausible argument, then somehow they coalesce around that argument just because. And the two major things that they want to put out there is that if you stay home, even though we have a coronavirus that can kill you, if you stay home, things that can happen at home could be more damaging than you going out there to work with a 1% or whatever probability is that you would have of dying from coronavirus. In other words, 1 in 100 people may die from coronavirus, but guess what? If you stay home and you have family violence and suicides and alcoholism and all these things, it could be just as bad, is what they want you to believe. One of the reasons why it is okay to go to work, because the risk of working is no different than the risk of staying home. They want to inculcate that in the minds of people. But the second part is they want to say, but guess what? The reason why the economy is tanking, the reason why we built the greatest economy, and then China came in because of their evil ways, because they lied to us, because they didn't tell us these things, that they tanked our economy in 30 days. The question is, how the hell can you tank an economy in 30 days if the economy is built on a solid foundation? The American economy that you saw, the stock market flying, and you saw people working, was never built on a solid rock. And how do I know that? You cannot have an economy claim it's built on a solid rock that falls like that. You cannot have an economy built on a solid rock where supposedly you have full employment and still wages are not going up very high. They may inch a little bit less than inflation, a little bit more than inflation, but they're going nowhere. We cannot continue to be fooled. This guy is in power because he has a particular base that is hard to move. And why is that base hard to move? Because of the belief systems. And John Pavlovich, see, over the weekend, a pastor that I like to follow, he had a great piece, and I want you to listen to this in its entirety because it is worth a listen. Check this out. Those of you who follow politics done right know that I'm a humanist, but I respect all religions, as all humanists should do, respect whatever people's beliefs are, etc. I came across John Pavlovich a few years ago, and I really liked what he had to say. But I mean, over the weekend, up in my feed came the latest video that he did, and it had to do with what he calls the 5 reasons white evangelicals are sort of worshiping Trump. Yes, it's mostly white evangelicals, but I must say there are a few others as well. But I think it follows the same detailed concepts that he puts here. He has an 8-minute video that I want you to see, but what I'm going to do is give you a little snippet of it, check it out, and then we'll take it on the other side.
White evangelicals recognized that they had in Donald Trump someone without a working morality of his own, just an empty husk who would adopt the moral convictions of whoever partnered with him. And so they decided, we'll make Donald Trump a Christian. So they put him on stage at Liberty University, they had him say a couple of things about religion, and he made some photo ops at prayer breakfasts or religious functions or at a church service, and suddenly he was sufficiently Christian for millions of Christians to support. Never mind that Donald Trump has no interest in emulating Jesus in any quantifiable measure, that he knows nothing of the gospel teachings, and even if he did, he would have no interest in living those out. For Christians who really want to support Donald Trump on the grounds that he is a Christian, that he is anointed by God, well, all they need are some pastors or evangelists who they respect to say that Donald Trump is a Christian, and suddenly, voila, he's a Christian without Jesus at all. Now, of course, there are other reasons Christians support Donald Trump, but I think these 5 really capture the lion's share of them. A really bad God story that says God is a white, cisgender, heterosexual man who was born in America, raised Christian, and votes Republican, and they really want to perpetuate that idea. The daddy issues that need an authoritarian leader, especially a man, to tell them what to do, and that's something Donald Trump just thrives to. The pro-life lie that Donald Trump is actually against abortion or pro-life or for humanity in any way. A Christianity that is steeped in whiteness and supremacy and nationalism and the fear of the outsider that Donald Trump is brilliant at leveraging. And a good old-fashioned capitalistic money grab by which they see in Donald Trump someone who will get them what they want. Now, it might seem surprising that people who profess to follow Jesus or say they love God would embrace someone with the lack of character that Donald Trump has, but it's really nothing new. The Old Testament records the story of the Israelites, and at first they're following God, they're being obedient, they're being faithful, and then they begin to lose their way, they begin to compromise their convictions, and they end up bowing down before a false idol. They end up worshiping a golden calf. So it really shouldn't be surprising to us that a few thousand years later, religious people are still compromising their convictions and losing their way and kneeling before an orange jackass.
He completely gets it. And I think one of the things we have to do, first of all, go over to his YouTube channel and check out the entire 8-something minute video. It has a lot of meat onto what he just said, and it's worth the watch. Go ahead, of course, and check it out. But folks, this is a video I think would be a good entry point to those who are still convincible. The 8-minute video, that is, because what it does is it sort of opens your mind to who Donald Trump is and the reasons why the leadership of the church has held on to him and brought their flock along. And if you can detach their flock from that ill decision by the leaders, maybe we just could get somewhere. Great job, John. Okay, folks, we have to get right into Candace Webber's interview right now because, as it turns out, I think we're probably a minute or so behind schedule, but let's go ahead and get busy. Check this out. Welcome to another segment of Politics Done Right. I'm here with the one and only Candace Webber, nurse, first responder, Black Lives Matter leader, community activist extraordinaire, everything all in one. And you know what? She's from Houston, folks, but she's not in Houston. Candace Webber, welcome aboard Politics Done Right. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good.
Now,
Thank you.
Candace, first of all, where are you?
I'm in Philly, West Philadelphia.
You're in West Philadelphia.
Yeah. I came out to Pennsylvania to fight COVID. Frontline work. Right. So I'm a critical care nurse. This is what I do.
Now, tell me, first of all, I don't want to say you're nice and easy here in Houston because we know even when you're in Houston, you're doing a hell of a lot of stuff, not only nursing, but you're really trying to keep the troops together. Why did you go to Pennsylvania?
Well, so I put a little bit of science to it. When you look at the areas that are hit the hardest, and the times, peaks, and all that, I'm trying very hard to maximize lending my skills to fighting this pandemic. So the way I figure, by the time things start to cool off more in this part of Pennsylvania, unfortunately, they will be raging in our home state. So I'll come home, and I'll continue to do what I do.
No, I want to say that is magnanimous. I mean, we need to have people that really, I mean, the truth of the matter is we have a lot of people that talk. We have a lot of people that do a whole lot of stuff, but the real heroes in this entire game are, the people that's doing what you're doing. You guys are the real heroes. That's not a gratuitous compliment or anything. That's just a statement of fact.
I want to be honest with you, though. I don't want to be a hero. I think that, to hear, there's billboards everywhere, right? Thank you, frontline workers. Thank you, healthcare heroes, and, all of that. I don't want to be a hero. I'm doing this because, life is precious. And you hear about it, in school, like at one point or another, you may be, asked to risk your life to render aid, to a complete stranger. Here we are doing that, well, I signed on for that, but, there is some just blatant ignorance that's happening in our country right now. I don't want to be a hero. I want people to do what is necessary for us, to stop the spread of coronavirus. I mean, like, we're busting our butts on the front line. We're tired, help us out here.
Well,
stay home.
You're so right. One of the reasons I wanted to talk to you, I spoke to a doctor last week. I wanted to speak to you this week because I understand where you said, oh, well, I don't want to be a hero. I just want things to get done, but things can't get done unless people really know what you are doing, what you're up against. And the truth of the matter is COVID to a whole lot of people is an abstraction.
Right.
Complete abstraction to a whole lot of people. And the reason it's that way is, including our governments, they're trying to keep a whole lot of this hidden so they can do what? Open back up the country. I wrote some blogs this morning about how the misinformation that's going out there. You are our only conduit into telling people what's out there. So my question to you is, what exactly are you seeing? Whom are you seeing being affected? And how do we tackle this misinformation?
Right. So first of all, I want to preface this with, I am a critical care nurse. So the patients that I get most often are the ones that have failed less acute treatments. I get the really sick ones. What I'm seeing is death. So people are dying. Um, and it's like, or system by system, by body systems just shutting down. Starts with the respiratory system. Well, okay, we'll breathe for you, we'll put you on a vent. And then the kidney starts shutting down. Okay, well, we'll put you on dialysis. And then it just goes downhill from there. People are dying. And unfortunately, I can definitely see the disparities, the health disparities with coronavirus. Um, and the saddest part about it is these are the people that are not making choices that end up in my ICU. They're not making choices. They're not out um, going around without a mask and all of that. They're regular people working essential jobs. Be grateful for the cashier at Walmart. These are the people that I'm seeing that are getting sick, and so or the worst, right? And unfortunately, these are also the exact same people that lack access to healthcare. They are underinsured, not by any fault of their own, but realistically, let's talk about Walmart. If you work at Walmart, you're the cashier at Walmart, they will work you 31 hours a week. Is at 32, you're eligible for some benefits, right? And this is the truth. This is real stuff. Google this shit. Excuse my language, but in times like these, don't believe just anybody on face value, it's including me. Do your own research. These are the people that are getting sick. They're the disparities. It's like shining a spotlight on them. And it's sad. It's really sad. These are the people that are most affected by the economy, since we're talking about, open the economy, open the economy. These are the people that want to go to work. They need to go to work because they're renters, and rent is due. No matter, what pandemic is going on, rent is due, okay? So they're renters, or they've got, drug costs because they are underinsured, right? They've got redlining that they're dealing with that's, already, creates other disparities, so it's like one thing stacked on another, stacked on another. Any of these one things would be enough for you to suffer some sort of injury, but to have all of them culminate at once, yeah, that'll take you out. So
You know what is interesting, Candice? From what you're just saying, there is I don't remember who it is I saw on the internet today that spoke about, yeah, we're talking about reopening the economy, but the economy was never really closed. A lot of those
right,
people that you're servicing right now, a lot of those people that you're seeing dying right now are the ones who are considered essential, and they're the ones at Walmart, they're the ones at all these other service places.
mm-hmm.
And the people that are complaining, and this kind of really grabbed me, that the people that are complaining because there are other people out there that's not working to serve them. They can stay home and work, but they
Right,
can't get their hair done. They can stay home and work, but they can't get served.
right, right. That's capitalism for you, right? Capitalism is
Exactly.
a very selfish um driving force. Me. I need my nails done. I need my hair cut. I need to like get out of the house during this quarantine. So I'm just going to stroll around Target, take a look see. These are the people that are getting hit the worst because you want a haircut. I don't understand it. I'm nurses, respiratory therapists are dying. You know, let's not forget about those respiratory therapists. They're the ones right there with me, up there with that vent, okay, dying here in the United States. Healthcare workers are dying,
Because they don't
rendering
have PPE.
aid. Right. We're the essential workers, and it's hitting us the worst. And so when we talk about essential worker, you know, everybody talks about the nurse, right? We don't hear very much about the respiratory therapist. We should. You know, everybody talks about the doctors and, you know, all of that. I need us to remember the cashiers. You know, I need us to remember the people that work at the drugstore, the pharmacists, the out of hospital pharmacists, right? People that work in fast food, people that work in restaurants and things, you know, like takeout, delivery. These people are still willing to get out and go and cook you something to eat. So you just have to dine in. That's so selfish, you know, and that's
I
the
get
ills of capitalism.
now. Here is a political thing now. And first of all, I know you're seeing a lot of debt. How are you doing mentally? How are you coping?
I'm right now. I'm in go mode. You know, like get the work done. You know, there have been some things that I've seen um, that have kind of like stung a bit. There was a nurse that passed away on the unit that I was working, and she died 2 hours before my shift started. And I walked in on the unit, and it was just like quiet, and everybody was like really upset. You could feel it, you know. And I heard that that nurse had died, and she died because she was on the front line, you know. That gave me some serious pause. But I mean, you just got to keep going, right? I'm a fighter. You know that about me. So
Absolutely. No, I mean, and that is the thing. I mean, when I heard that you were heading off to the Northeast, it was like, yeah. First of all, it didn't surprise me. Okay, it didn't surprise me at all.
done that a
But
couple
but
times.
but then again, with how things are really, you know, with the semblance of things getting better, but we know what's happening in Texas and all these places. I wanted to talk to you to see some thoughts that you had. Now, Texas is a state that has the highest number of uninsured people.
Yes,
We have some of the worst testing in the country, and now we're
absolutely.
seeing that we are finding more people with the that's being hit by this pandemic.
Yes.
What do you expect when you get back here?
I expect Texas is probably going to end up one of the states that gets hit the hardest throughout this because the demographic of believers versus non-believers weighs heavy on the non-believer side. Um, we've got some relatively healthy people that are going to be asymptomatic. Um, this like just flat out, I'm going to call it like it is. You know, like we have to call a thing right now. It is important to just be very blunt, be very honest. Texas is a racist. It is a Republican driven state that thrives on continuing the disparities of Black and non-Black people of color. It always has looked like that. If you want to know how a state loves its people of color, you look at their education. Right now, we're like in the 40th, right? So Texas is not a friend of non-white people. So Black people are most likely in essential positions. We're service oriented, right? And people of color, you know, whether even you know, on the higher scale, we've got, you know, doctors, nurses, and all that. I mean, because we're great, we're brilliant,
You're
you
right.
know, but very service oriented for Black and non-Black people of color. We already talked about essential workers. That's us, you know. Um, and the sad thing about it is people can just walk into these places with no mask whatsoever and not be called on it. You know, I'm waiting for the news, to show the essential worker that refused to wait on somebody, take care of somebody that's not wearing a mask, you know. Texas is going to get slammed.
You know what's my
Hard.
concern about that though, Candace, and tell me if it's possible, because my concern is that I think Texas, as like you do, is going to get slammed, but I think that our structures, given how they're controlled, they're likely to hide the real numbers. Tell me if that is even possible.
I think yes, it's absolutely possible. Um, death, counting mortality, in any state, just the way it's done here in the United States, counting mortality comes down to what the nurses and doctors label as cause of death, right? So if doctors are not labeling COVID-19 as cause of death, even if they label something like pneumonia or, respiratory failure or, MI, because it's secondary to respiratory failure,
Right.
because they've got COVID-19. If you're not labeling it that way, then it's not going to be counted that way as far as mortality goes. And then you've got other things, like Black people are not always believed. Most often they're not believed when they go into emergency rooms and they talk about the symptoms that they are having. Those symptoms are very often minimized. And I'm talking about I'm frontline to this. I've been a nurse for going on 2 decades. This is not what I've seen just because of coronavirus. It is what it is. It has been this way. Black people are not believed. Brown people are not believed. Latinx people going into the ER. I have seen people that have gone into the ER reading their history 3-4 times in 7 days. And on that 5th day, they are in complete renal failure. This is the stuff that I see every day, right? So we're not believed. These people are going to show up at the ER. They're going to get turned away. They're going to go home and they die in their homes. Do they get counted as COVID-19 or do they not? They just saw this happen in New York.
Right.
So yeah, just by the nature of this disease, counting is going to be skewed. But then when we've got a governor that thinks in line with Trump, less testing, less positive, we're in trouble.
This is the first time I've seen you being so gracious and nice. You said that that Black people and Latinx people are not believed. I think it's a bit worse than that. I think folks simply just
They don't care.
And that's why I said I think you're the most gracious in stating it that way. Now, Candace, let's get a little bit political here.
Sure.
I think there's a paradigm shift that all of us who consider ourselves activists have to be working for right now.
Mm-hmm.
If we allow, in my humble opinion, the same structures to exist when we get out of this, what will be a depression, I think it's on us.
Yeah.
I think it's so important for us to get that unity. I know you work with Black Lives Matter, and I know you work with other groups as well. I think we also have to work with a lot of underrepresented white folk, and you tell me how we do this, to form some sort of coalition to make sure that what we get going forward is not what we've had. Meaning, we need to tear loose on this private healthcare system and really take one that covers absolutely everybody.
So first of all, I'm going to tell you, just like flat out, what is going to make poor white people realize that they're not faring any better than poor Black people? I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Well, you do know, Candace.
And
you do know, Candace. You do know.
Well, yeah. I mean, a lot of white people feel like they're doing okay as long as they're doing better than Black people.
Okay, there you go.
We know that shit's the real thing,
Okay,
right? That's the real thing. And that's sad because, damn, that's setting the bar real low for yourself, because we're out here struggling. We are struggling, but, go off, whatever. So, yeah, I think that, like, white people need to work on white people, right? So if you're my ally, I can talk to you about what's going on. I mean, if you're a real ally, we will open up our private spaces so you can see it. And then you go work on your own people. You know, I don't want to hear you complaining about your grandpa on or you know, your uncle, you know, whoever the hell it is on July 4th, you know, because he's so racist. Like I come in contact with that racist uncle of yours, your racist grandpa, every single day, random. No warning whatsoever. Like nobody, I don't wake up in the morning and just get like, you know, get a text message. You're going to see Rachel's racist grandpa at the grocery store. You know, that doesn't happen for us. So I really think that right now allies need to step up. I think that me as an advocate, I hate to use the word activist because, you know, like, I don't know, that's like some big shoes. But
You are.
thank you. I think I need to be open, right, to teaching, be more open to teaching allies. What's going on, where the disparities are, where her people, his people are getting it good. Even if it's bad for you, understand that it's worse for us. And if we can work together to elevate Black and non-Black people of color, Black people don't have a damn choice but to rise. They're already standing on our shoulders, you know. Be you poor or not, you have opportunities because of the color of your skin. And that's what white people need to own. Like it, and then, so one of my dear friends, her name is Ann. She's an ally, and we talk about this kind of stuff all the time. And she's done some amazing things. And one night, I was like, you know, Ann, I really appreciate you being the ally that you are. And she looked at me with like this the warmest look, and she said, Candace, I am trying to save my own humanity. I am trying to
She
save
said
the
that.
humanity of white people. I want white kids to look back at the way we've behaved and be proud of us, not be scared, not be ashamed and embarrassed. I'm trying to save our own humanity. I was like, girl, this is why I love you.
You know, Candace, I want to tell you something. I have been running across a whole lot of that. That is part of where I came up with my song, When We Unite the Ghettos, the Barrios, and Appalachia. That is a stereotype, I understand that.
Yeah.
When we can really start doing that kind of work together, which means everybody has to centralize. But when we can start doing that work, that is how we're going to win this battle. And my thing is, Candace, is that we have to get this done. This is going to be a depression that we're hitting, Candace.
Oh yeah, it's going to be ugly. You
Yes.
know, I think that so the wannabe revolutionist in me says, you know, I think that people are going to revolt and rise up. Like this is going to really strip us down to the bare bones. And you can't keep making billions of dollars while I go hungry. That shit just can't keep going.
Candace, and that's the magic. And you know, you're first of all, you're absolutely right. And my thing is, how is this stuff going to go down? And what I think folks like you have to do, you know, that ally that you spoke to that said that, she has a lot of work to do, because the first part of this thing that's going to go down is before we get a chance to look at the real problem, the plutocracy, they're going to start putting all these wedges in between, not only between Black, white, Latino, and all that kind of stuff, but between have some, have a little bit more,
right,
and the have not.
Well, and so here's the thing, though. That's already happening right now,
Yes.
my friend. Right?
Yes.
Like this is chess, right? They have been lining up their pieces. America has always been this way. This is not new.
True.
Right? Donald Trump is like, I hate to say it, but Donald Trump is the substance of things hoped for in a white supremacist world.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow. Did you just come up with that one?
Well, you know, that's the Bible. But yeah. Yeah. I love Jesus, but I drink a little. That is also not mine. But that's the truth, though. I mean, I can't think of it any other way.
Right.
America has always been this way. And America is not ever going to change. There's never going to be any balance whatsoever until we take it, because right now, white men are in power. They've always been in power. And even when it's really bad, really, really bad, Bezos has still got a private island and a yacht to get there. Okay. You know what I'm saying? Like when it's really, really bad, when I am done. I ate my last ramen noodles.
Yeah,
right.
We just made $30 billion on our pain.
That's what I'm talking about. You can't keep doing that, and we keep going hungry. At some point, we have to rise up. So I'm in, right?
We are in, Candace,
We're
and
in.
I wanted to talk to you so badly. I knew you were out there in the Northeast, and I said, one of our own is doing important stuff out there. I'm sorry for all the pain that you're seeing, but know that you have the folks right back home that you can always depend on. So Candice Webber, nurse, first responder, Black Lives Matter leader, community activist, a damn good friend, and somebody I've always been proud of. Thank you so kindly for being a part of Politics Done Right.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Well, I hope you enjoyed, Candace. We have to run into the other segment right away, so here we go. Welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm here with Stephanie Bailey and John Cotter. Do you guys remember them from the last time they were here telling us about the debates that they're running about all these candidates that we are going to be voting for, and they are back again. Stephanie, good morning, and how art thou doing?
Good morning. I'm doing great. Thank you so much.
Well, and John?
Good morning, Alberto. Thanks for having us on. It's great to see you.
Well, you know what I always say, politics done right ain't mine. Politics done right belongs to everybody. Stephanie, tell me a little bit about the debates. What do we have going forward?
So we have tomorrow, we have Congressional District 10, which surprisingly runs from Northwest Harris County all the way to Austin. And we have Bastrop County as a co-sponsor, and you guys in Austin are going to see some press about it. Congressional District 10 was 4.5 points, I think, difference that we lost by. So it's winnable. We can do it. And then we have the State Board of Education position 6, which is Harris County and beyond. And we have next week, we have the Texas Railroad Commission and the Senate.
Let's start with the Senate. Who do we have coming in with the Senate, John?
On the Senate race, the runoff is to replace John Cornyn.
Right.
And we have State Senator West, and MJ Hager are the two candidates in the Democratic runoff for that seat.
And when exactly is that debate going to be again? To let everybody know.
That is next Thursday on
May 28th.
Date for you, exactly. Thursday, the 28th, May 28th at 7 p.m.
Well, I think we should all be expecting sparks to fly, because these are two prominent Democrats here in the state of Texas, and I think that's going to be a good one. Wouldn't you say, Steph?
Yes, I do. It's such an important race, and like I said 2 weeks ago, I think we did this with you.
Right.
Can Cornyn, we got to get him out of there.
Well, I mean, I think it's something that we have to work on, and I think it is. I love what you all are doing, because what it's going to do is especially with a lot of people sort of still locked in with the COVID-19 quarantine, get a chance to see these folk who they don't get to see as because they're not running around the states like they should. Now, I tell you something, and I think we have to activate Democrats in this regard. We've been talking to a whole lot of people, and the other side is very activated. And I think it is incumbent on us to do exactly what you're doing, because absent that, they can win with a small amount of votes. So what else are you consider doing after these debates? I mean, I know that the election is, what's the date of the actual election, the primary election?
Just extended early voting, so it's 2 weeks before, but election day is July 14th. That's the day of the election.
Oh, I didn't. That got extended as well. Then, yeah.
Yeah, early voting is going to be 2 weeks now. July 4th is part
June
of.
20.
I don't have the exact dates, but I can
Well,
look them up.
that'll be posted at the website. So that.
Yeah.
In other words, folks, you have time to get activated, and you have time to really start working about getting out there and vote. Now, is there anything else? What are you doing subsequent to these debates? I mean, I think when do you end? I think next week is the last of these debates, or?
We actually have been asked to possibly extend, so we're working on a few other races. There are 7 runoffs that we didn't cover, 4 judicial positions and 3 constable positions. So we're actually working with those candidates. They've been seeing what we're doing and how great our audience has been and the interaction. And so they want us to do something for them too. We just haven't nailed down the dates and who wants to participate yet.
That is so important, because I tell you, I like to consider myself politically aware, and when I see those ballots and I see all the people on the ballots, half of the times, I'm sorry, I'm out of invested. A lot of times I don't know, exactly who these people are. Don't you think that that's the case for a lot of people, John?
Yeah, it's very true, because especially in a year like 2020, everybody knows about the president. A handful of people know about the Senate and House races, but when you get way down the ballot, those are your local representatives and people that are working locally to help you out and help you in your community. And unfortunately, a lot of people just don't have the opportunity to get to know those folks. And that's one of the things we were hoping that this event, these various nights that we're putting on would be useful to help get that information out to the voters. Now, Stephanie mentioned that we are doing the Congressional District 10, and that's a huge geographical area. I mean, it runs from the west side of Houston all the way to Austin. That's a long way. It's got about 800,000 voters. The current incumbent, Republican fellow, he won in 2018 with 157,000 votes against the Democratic contender with 144,000. So that's about a 4% spread in that race. However, Beto, in his race, it was within a half a point.
John, one of the things in elections is that you really need to start having name recognition. With us having primaries and all of that, since we have to give 2 or so, two, it's an issue. So who are these guys that are running for 10?
So in Congressional District 10 on the Democratic side, it's Mike Siegel, who is from over in the Austin area, and Pritesh Gandhi. They're in the runoff for the Democratic side. And the stats that we talked about for 2018, that was Mike Siegel running against the Republican incumbent. Well, so he's taken another shot at it this time.
And I think given that people kind of know him now, that should be a lot better. And given that it was just 4 points, and if we get out there, John, if we really get out there, this is something that we can do, but we just have to get out there. That just lingers in the back of my mind. What my friend told my wife is that the other side is so activated that, again, what you guys are doing is so important.
So our Thursday night race is the State Board of Education. That's position 6. So there'll be a runoff on the Democratic side. And, people wonder why the State Board of Education is so important in Texas. I mean, it's important everywhere, but Texas specifically. So some of the things that the State Board of Education is responsible for, well, they establish graduation standards for all the graduating seniors in Texas. They set the curriculum standards. 2 of the things that's really important to those of us with a little progressive thoughts are they are in charge of charter school approvals. So they have a lot of control on whether a charter school gets approved or not. And then one of the biggest things that really affects nationwide is they're in charge of the education materials, meaning books. They pick the school books, the textbooks that the students get when they're going through school. They approve the stuff that's in those textbooks. So they approve what's in a history book and those kind of things. So, that's really important for the kids in Texas, for the education. But because Texas is so big and we have a huge volume of materials that we buy, it affects the other states. Because if the other states order the same books that Texas have approved, then they're getting a better price point on those books. And so it's so important to have accurate information in the school books in Texas, because it affects the whole U.S. education system.
Okay, Stephanie, so who's running in these different districts that you are actually taking through the debates in the next few weeks?
So tomorrow we have Dr. Pritesh Gandhi and Mike Siegel, and that's CD10. Thursday we have State Board of Education, position 6, which is Michelle Palmer and Kimberly McLeod. And the next week for Texas Railroad Commission on Tuesday, remember that's a statewide race, that is Krista Castaneda and Roberto Alonso. And then for U.S. Senate, we have Senator West, State Senator West, and MJ Hagar.
Now, folks, for now, those are 8 names, but remember in a few weeks, it's going to be 4, and those are the 4 names that you're going to have to get busy with, not only you voting for, but a lot of other people voting for. Now, that Railroad Commission is an interesting thing. You know, we always hear Railroad Commission. John, why should people even be interested in Railroad Commission?
Yeah, I mean, you just think, well, they're in charge of regulating and keeping tabs on the railroads. And it's kind of funny, because in the state of Texas, it has nothing to do with the railroads. It has everything to do with the oil and gas industry. And so it talks about regulations as far as environmental, how they can treat the flaring of gases, which is a known environmental hazard, waste that comes out of the plants and things like that. So it's very important, for the environment and for everybody that lives in the neighborhoods, and for the businesses too. So it's very important, because I mean, think about Texas. I mean, and especially the Houston area. Oil and gas is a huge industry, and so it has a big effect.
All you have to do is drive down I-10 or 146 or one of these places, and there's a time that you are surrounded by tanks and flares and everything else. That's what we do down here. I mean, we're sort of the heart of the oil industry in the country. So yeah, that is a real important position. So anyhow, what you guys are doing with all these debates it is so important. So before I close, is there anything that I'm missing that we need to talk about at all?
There's one little thing.
Let me hear that little thing.
A few things. Number one, this year, there's a couple things. Something that's a little bit of a warning, which is that we don't in Texas have straight ticket voting anymore. So when you're going to go vote, which we expect you to do, make sure that you go down and you click for every single race all the way down the ballot. We always say the closer it is to you, the more it affects you. So down the ballot, closer to home. The other thing is Texas is not red. We are a blue state. We just don't vote. If we can get people out there and get them voting and going all the way down the ballot, we can take it. We can take the state house. We can take the U.S. House. We can take the presidency. We just have to get it done.
John?
I'd like to leave you with this. The COVID-19's really highlighted a lot of breaks and fissures in our country's infrastructure. And I don't mean roads and bridges. I mean support structure for people that are not able to work right now, health insurance, things like that. And the only way that we're going to be able to fix those things is to put some adults in the room that actually care about what happens to the people. And that to follow on to that, what Stephanie said was, you can't just click one button at the top of the ballot when we vote this year. You have to go all the way down. And Texas has a long ballot because there's a lot of positions. So vote the Democratic position all the way down, because we need the folks in all of these offices. They're going to do things to make life better for everybody that's struggling during this virus.
And that is how we're going to make the change, folks. Having Stephanie and having John on our team, that is how we win. Thank you guys for all that you do. Thank you very much for what you're doing, not only for the state, but ultimately the country. There's one thing that I want to get out there before we go. Stephanie, how can we reach the organization? How can we also support the organization?
Wonderful. So if you want to become a sponsor, we are taking donations, and you can find us on Facebook, and also all the videos are posted on Facebook. And our site is 2020 Democratic Candidate Debates.
2020 Democratic Candidates Debate. Please,
Yes.
folks, they are doing important work. Please treat them accordingly. Thank you so kindly, Stephanie and John, for being with us once again. And I guess we'll be back next week.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Roberto. Great to see you.
Okay, folks, I hope you liked that. I finished that at 4:01. I told you I was a minute late, but I have to do my thing here real quick. Folks, please do remember that this program needs your support. So shop at our store. Get some of our swag, if you will. Go to store.politicsdoneright.com. Again, that is store.politicsdoneright.com. Support our good program. Please support what we're doing, support what we're trying to do. But most importantly, if you really want to keep us on the right path, what I'd like to ask you to do is become a subscriber. Man, it's cheap. It starts at $1.99, and we do a lot with what you give us. We do a ton with what you give us, both in our writing, both in our video production and all of that, so that we can fill the internet space with our message. The reason why the right wins is they have corporations investing in addressing every single space on the internet, in the mail, on TV, on radio. Here we are, littlepoliticsdoneright.com. We are working on the radio, on the airwaves. We are working on the internet. We are working on the emails, etc. We are doing our little part. We are asking you also to partake of helping us do our part, because you know what? If we individually don't get this done, we all pay the price. We all pay the price. So please go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright. patreon.com/politicsdoneright. For less than a cup of coffee. But if you want to give more cups of coffee, you can. But for less than a cup of coffee, you can support something worth supporting. And also, please don't forget, you can go to our PayPal as well, paypal.me/politicsdoneright. Again, that is paypal.me/politicsdoneright. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right, and you know how I end this, baby. I am what? Out! I'm Egberto Willies, host of Politics Done Right, an independent news program. I post several news videos of interest every day. I ask you so kindly to subscribe to my channel, and please leave me some comments. Thank you very much.